Hey guys, Colton here. Real quick before we get into the episode, I want to talk to you about the future of Chasing Masculinity. I want to let you know that we're not going anywhere, but that how it's going to look moving forward is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to move away from the weekly episodes just to make sure that, well, one, I don't get burnt out, but two, that I keep the material that's coming actually important and meaningful and doesn't feel like it's forced or manufactured. So moving forward, I don't know if there's going to be any disruption in the weekly episodes for a while, but just wanted to say that the episodes are going to come as they come, and they're not going to be on the Wednesday morning weekly occurrence. So thank you for listening. I'll let you get back to the episode.
Hello, and welcome back to Chasing Masculinity. Today's episode is going to make some of you uncomfortable, and that is intentional. I want to be clear right from the start about this episode, about what this conversation is about and what it's not. This is not going to be a call for theocracy. This is not going to be any sort of forced belief, political power, or merging of church and state, nothing like that. This is something a little bit more basic and much more honest. Now, for anyone new that's listening, I am a Christian, and I am somebody who has been actively working on wearing my faith outwardly, or wearing it on my chest. And that was one of the seeds planted that eventually came to this episode's creation. Now, Western culture did not arise accidentally. The values that we take for granted, human dignity, objective morality, ordered freedom, responsibility, and restraint, they didn't just appear out of thin air. They were formed, they were shaped, and then preserved by a Christian worldview. Now, whether somebody personally believes in Christianity or not doesn't really change. That is historical reality. That is the Judeo-Christian values that have been imprinted onto the Western world. And there's a tension that we're living in right now. Christianity is being stripped out of public life. It's being pushed more into a private sphere, treated as something that is embarrassing or outdated, while people continue to enjoy the fruit that Christianity has produced. We want the house, but we're being told to tear out that foundation. Men are being asked to abandon the very framework that gave their lives structure, meaning, direction, while still standing inside the structure that it built. You don't need to be a perfect Christian to see this. You don't need to have everything figured out theologically. You just need to be honest. Christian values built the West. And when you remove those values, the structure doesn't become neutral. It doesn't become agnostic. It collapses. One of the biggest lies that we've been told is that this lukewarm faith is harmless, that staying quiet is neutral, that keeping Christianity private is somehow loving or wise, but it's not. And don't get me wrong, I am not a Bible-thumping street preacher here. I am not that type of Christian. I don't necessarily think that form of evangelism is the most beneficial. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not the street preacher type, go and yell at people on the sidewalk. Not at all. But this lukewarm faith, that's not neutrality. That is a passive surrender. It is choosing comfort over conviction, and over time, it guarantees the loss of everything that it refuses to defend. So today, we're going to talk about what it means to make America Christian again. That doesn't mean politically, not forcibly, but culturally, morally, and personally. We're going to talk about wearing your faith on your chest, not loudly or arrogantly necessarily, but clearly and consistently and without apology. So with that, let's get into today's episode. All right, I want to start by talking about Christianity as the foundation of Western civilization. I want to establish that this is a historical reality, not some sort of emotional appeal because I happen to be a Christian. Christianity was civilization's infrastructure, not this sort of private sentiment. Civilization didn't allow Christianity to prosper, it was the other way around. So to start, there's a biblical worldview that shaped Western culture. That starts with human dignity. That is rooted in Imago Dei. That is Genesis 1:27, where every human is already given an inherent value. It's not a value that's guaranteed by the state or a tribe or any sort of utility. You already have it. All men as in men and women, are created equal in the image of God. This is why concepts like human rights could emerge at all. We were all created in God's image. There was equality before the law. This is flowing from a sort of moral accountability to God. No one is above the law because everybody is under God. Whereas more secular forms of leadership and ruling, there are systems where rulers define morality and you're subject to somebody else. The next thing is objective truth, because truth is something that is discovered, not necessarily constructed. The Christian worldview assumes that truth exists already, independent of power. This then allows for the moral critique of things like kings and institutions and cultures, things in power that could otherwise shut you up. Christianity limits that power of man by placing God above them. Then there are institutions formed by Christian thought, like universities. They originated in monasteries and cathedral schools. There was a need for education that was seeded by pursuing to understand God's creation and truth. There was truth seeking that assumed an order and intelligibility because God is rational. Therefore, we must be able to rationally study and learn. There's also hospitals and charity work. Christians care for the weak, the sick, the poor. That is one of our callings. This was a radical idea at the time because why are the weak worth saving? That's actually one of the signs of an advanced culture is if you see a fossil, you find a fossil that lived to an older age, but they have a broken femur. That means, and it's been scarred over, because that means they broke their femur and then lived several years later. You don't break your femur and survive without help. So why, if you are not a culture that has this sense of charity and care and wanting to take care of others, why would you not let the weak die so that only the strong can survive and therefore make you better? That is a Christian value that's been instilled since day one. There is charity that's rooted in love, not necessarily usefulness or utility of an individual. There's also the rule of law. So law is grounded in these moral absolutes rather than a sort of ruler preference, a king that gives you the Caesar, that gives you thumbs up or thumbs down. Justice is stood as objective, not situational. Legality or legal equality flows from a shared moral accountability. This comes from God's law. Now think about that with some alternative systems. Without God, morality is going to become a preference, an ideology, or even a force. Right and wrong will just shift with whoever's in power. And without that Christian restraint, that strength can turn into tyranny because you're not subject to anybody higher than you. You can be on the top. Power is going to then go unchecked. And without forgiveness, grievance is going to become someone's identity. History becomes an endless cycle of retaliation. How come when we have a war, it's not the complete extinction of whoever loses that war, and then they don't rise up and eventually create the extinction of whoever they were fighting against? There's always survivors, and that doesn't make sense if you're trying to eliminate somebody without forgiveness. There's also comparative observation. In many non-Christian systems, hierarchy is defining your worth. It's the class system. Judicial systems treat men and women, elites and commoners differently. Power flows upward and accountability then flows downward. That's because you lose the all men are created in God's image. You lose the baseline of equality. Now, important tone note, this is not about demonizing anybody here. This is not about saying if you are not a Christian, then you are in the wrong. This is simply about recognizing the structural outcomes of the belief system. That is the Judeo-Christian belief system. Christianity doesn't just comfort souls and help the lost and give people a sense of belonging and life. It disciplines civilizations. Now, that is the background about why Christianity is so important to Western culture. This is the culture that I think most of you listening are a part of and in and take a part of. Now I want to get into the lie of a quote-unquote neutral culture. I want to expose the myth of this secular neutrality and also talk about the consequences of choosing the neutral path. So there is a modern myth, and that is removing Christianity does not create neutrality. The myth is that it does. It creates a vacuum because moral systems don't disappear. You can't get rid of them. They're replaced. So I talked about all of the moral systems that the Judeo-Christian culture or Christianity has put on Western culture. If you try to eliminate Christianity, you don't just create neutrality. You are creating a vacuum and something is going to fill those places. The moral systems are going to get replaced. Neutral culture is a fiction. It doesn't exist. Every culture worships something. If you think we don't need Christianity because we don't need a God, you're wrong because you're not eliminating a needless sense of worship. You're replacing it for other idols. You just don't see them. It just comes down to what you're worshiping instead of who. There is a political identity that is going to become a moral identity. And with power, whoever's in it is going to decide what truth replaces what is true. You've already seen this if you follow any sort of modern media. It's borderline 1984 where the truth is just blatantly getting rewritten and people just have to believe it. There are already mainstream media sources that have been caught just blatantly lying, trying to backtrack and recreate the truth to fit a different narrative. And if you let that power stay, if you let them be in power, that is the moral system that they're going to try to replace you with. And then it's also going to eliminate worship with self-worship. There's going to be a personal desire to elevate yourself to the moral authority because, guess what? If you're the moral authority, that means whatever you want goes. Wherever you feel is right. And if anybody else feels anything differently, they're the bad guy and you are justified in whatever you think or do to them. It also creates a sort of victimhood hierarchy where suffering becomes the currency. I am the most victimized here. And that is replacing responsibility with grievance. You see this too, especially in the younger, more liberal crowds of universities. It's who can be the most oppressed because that is the currency. They get put on top because they tried to find a way to put themselves on bottom. That is not what Jesus meant when he said, whoever shall be first will be last, and whoever shall be last will be first. Now, why is every religion in the world? I want to think about this. Why is every other religion except Christianity celebrated? Christianity uniquely restrains power and convicts us of sin, whereas a lot of other mainstream religions that are not based in Christianity, they're going in completely different directions and they're celebrated. Why is Christianity the only one in Western culture that's trying to get snuffed out, where things like Judaism and Islam or Hindu, Buddhism, any other mainstream or smaller religion that isn't Christianity is celebrated? Yes, go, please, be unique in your religion, but not if you're a Christian. That needs to be snuffed out. I think a part of that is because Christianity is a religion that uniquely restrains your power and makes you convicted of your sin. It doesn't let you conform to your own belief system. It can't be easily co-opted. This matters for men because men are told to be silent, to be passive, to be apologetic. Apathy becomes the expected posture. And apathy is the ultimate sin of man. Think of Adam in the book of Genesis. He has a failure to lead. He has a failure to intervene. Adam's sin is apathy, or Abraham's passivity. He's allowing fear to override his calling, or he's delegating his responsibility instead of bearing it, and he's allowing himself to agree to some terrible decisions. The modern result of this apathy is that any sort of conviction that masculinity has is labeled as extremism. Strength is framed as danger. Masculinity is stripped instead of being disciplined. Now, I want to define what I mean by MACA here. Make America Christian Again. It does not mean any sort of forced belief. It means that you are refusing to pretend that Christianity is the problem, regardless of if you're a Christian or not. You are recognizing that it was the solution that the very freedoms we enjoy depend on. So, what does it mean then to wear your faith on your chest? I want to go through this with some scripture, like Matthew 5:14 through 16. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. So this visibility is assumed. It's not optional. Faith that is invisible is not obedience. Light is meant to be seen. Then there's Romans 1:16, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. This is not being ashamed of the gospel. Shame is a primary silencing weapon. Christians are pressured to privatize their beliefs. Keep it internal, keep it in the home. Shame keeps your conviction quiet. Then there's James 1:22. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Be doers, not hearers only. Passive belief is self-deception. Faith that never manifests is functionally dead. It means wearing it on your chest. It means you're doing the things. You're not just saying you're a Christian. So what does wearing your faith on your chest mean? It does not mean virtue signaling. It does not mean shouting scripture on the street, making others feel bad. It's not any sort of political domination, trying to take back the White House. What it is consistency. Consistency between your belief and your actual action. You are doing the things. It is moral clarity without cruelty. It is a coherence to your life. You are a Christian, and people know that. And you are not going to back down when Christianity is trampled and when there are people who try to strip away your Christian values. Follow me as I follow Christ. Masculinity is rooted in submission to God, not in the self. So then what is the cost to not doing this? What is the cost of lukewarm faith or silence? What happens when Christianity stays silent? Christian values are then treated as optional, and then sin is rebranded as progress. Oh, I'm making progress. I only did this many times this week. And moral language loses its meaning. What is morality anymore? There's no anchor for your discipline. There's no framework for your sacrifice. If you're doing the things, what's the point? That's why lukewarm faith is dangerous. It preserves your appearance without any actual power behind it. Cultural Christianity without conviction. It's teaching the next generation that belief is negotiable and that the truth should only ever be private. So please be courageous. Don't claim Christian values without Christian conviction. You can't enjoy the fruit when you're rejecting the root, the foundation. Neutrality, it is your choice, but it has its consequences. So what does it look like practically for you as a man? In your speech, there's no lying. You're not avoiding conflict. There's no affirming what you know is false. You speak your truth, and you have your restraint that you use with wisdom and clarity. And in your life, you have integrity. Integrity at your workplace. You have faithfulness in your marriage, and you lead it well. You have responsibility over indulgence. You have to have character over comfort. You should be known as a Christian by how you live. Not abrasive, but not apologetic. You need to be unashamed, not performative. The key point here is wearing your faith on your chest is about coherence, not confrontation. It's not fighting somebody. It's not a sword, but it is a shield. So as we close this out, I want to bring us back to that personal level because that's where all of this actually lives or dies. Make America Christian Again does not start with laws or elections or institutions. It starts with men, with whether Christian men are willing to live like they actually believe what they say they believe. Western civilization didn't collapse because Christianity was disproven. It erodes when Christians go silent, passive, when they get comfortable. Wearing your faith on your chest isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's not about winning the arguments. It's about coherence. It's about your beliefs matching your life. Everything has to be in unison. Everything has to be in unity. Your words are matching your actions. Your convictions are visible without a need for an explanation. That kind of faith doesn't need to dominate culture. It just happens to shape it naturally. So lukewarm faith. It's not harmless. Silence is not neutral. And comfort is a terrible God. If Christianity built the moral framework you stand on, then pretending it is optional is intellectually dishonest at best and cowardice at worst. This is not a call to be angry. It is a call to be courageous. Stop outsourcing your conviction to culture, to what people want you to think modern Western civilization should look like. Stop hiding behind politeness when clarity is required. Don't conform your Christian beliefs to appease the world. It's the same world that crucified our God. Why would you listen to it? Now go and live in a way that your faith is obvious, not because you announce it, but because you do everything that it says to do. So thank you for tuning into Chasing Masculinity. I will see you guys in the next episode, and as always, keep chasing. Before you go, I want to mention something briefly. If this podcast has been resonating with you, if the conversations around discipline, purpose, identity, and what it means to be a man today have been hitting close to home, then my book, 24 Rules of Masculinity, is officially out. It is a direct, practical guide built around the same principles we talk about here: biblical foundations, hard-earned lessons, and clear direction for men who want to live with intention instead of drifting. This isn't theory. It's meant to be picked up, applied, and just carried with you. So whether you're just starting to take ownership of your life or you're trying to realign and get it back on track, that's why I wrote it. You can find 24 Rules of Masculinity on Amazon or through the link in the description. If you do pick it up, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.